You're watching Sir Panda. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button for future videos. Ah yes, Russia. The land of extremes. The largest nation by land area, the most uninvadable country in winter, and until recently the home of the most radical leftist ideology on earth, communism. But that little venture didn't quite work out. I don't know, something about a starving population and all that. Anyway, by 1991 the country wanted out. It saw that on the other side of the world, capitalism was working out pretty well. So it said, hey, let's give it a go. But Russia didn't want just any old capitalism. It wanted the best capitalism that money could buy. But wait, what's that you say? There are different levels of capitalism? Why yes, dear viewer, there are. Every country is capable of deciding how much control it has over the whole process of individuals getting rich. There are countries like Norway, which impose strict policies on the extent to which individuals can get rich at the expense of others. For instance, by negotiating with medical companies to keep the cost of medications down. There are also countries like the United States, which, well, let's just say gave less of a hoot. Naturally, Russia wanted in with the biggest boy on the block, the USA. But it didn't just want to follow in its footsteps, oh no. Its destiny was to surpass it. It took that little hoot the USA still gave and threw it out of a 10-story Stalinist apartment. Russia was done with the whole protecting the people business. It adopted the most extreme form of capitalism known to man, crony capitalism. Just like how communism represented the radical left, crony capitalism represents the radical right. In plain old regular capitalism, industry is controlled by markets that consist of privately or publicly owned companies competing against each other for their share of the pie. In crony capitalism, there is no real market. A few select oligarchs have monopolies over all the key industries. Sure, there was competition around food chains and hairdressers, but a handful of people were handed the keys to all the big money-making industries like oil and gas. With one caveat of course, that they stay loyal to the president, who at the time was Boris Yeltsin. Now this was technically still capitalism, in that private citizens were now allowed to get rich. The only problem is that getting rich is hard, even at the best of times. And nigh impossible when every profitable industry is closed off to you. You can start to see why this kind of environment might not be the best for innovation and economic growth. In the next 4 years, Russia's economy contracted by an average of 10% annually. Even today, Russia's small and medium businesses contribute only to a fifth of their economy. In a tragic twist of fate, Russia had allowed the means of production to fall entirely into the hands of the elite at the expense of the working class. The exact thing Karl Marx had feared when he wrote the Communist Manifesto all those years ago. The domino effect ensured that the following years would get progressively worse. Hyperinflation wiped out personal savings, and crime and destitution became commonplace. Life expectancy decreased and consumer confidence was at an all-time low. Things all came to a head in the 1998 Russian financial crisis, which saw the Kremlin defaulting on its debts, often to the oligarchs themselves. Ultimately, Yeltsin was forced to resign, and a young leader by the name of Vladimir Putin was ushered in, promising to revitalize the Russian economy. And revitalize he did. He ousted the oligarchs and set the Russian economy on its way to become a true market economy. Only that's not what he did. Instead, he made a deal with the oligarchs. You can keep your job as long as you give me your full support. Alas, Putin retained the oligarchy. Now that's not to say that Putin did nothing. Over the years, he slowly reversed the privatization of Russia's biggest corporations by either having the state buy them back or just outright seizing them. It's important to note, however, that this alone does not do anything to address the key structural issues that plagued Russia all these many years. Reforms to create an environment that fosters innovation, a first-rate higher education system, as well as an effective healthcare system have all stalled. The sanctions the United States, Europe and Japan placed on Russia in 2014 following the annexation of Crimea certainly didn't help. Bloomberg estimates that these sanctions weakened the economy by as much as 6%. The economy is still struggling to recover to this day. It's clear that if Russia wants out of this economic slump that it now faces, its leaders need to do some pretty heavy lifting. In the decades to come, Russia must muster up the courage to address these critical deficiencies face on in order to compete in an ever more competitive world.